Da sind wir wieder. Hier aus unserem Gamescom-Booth, von unserem Gamescom-Stand, mittendrin in Halle 10. Und neben mir sitzt Al von Creative Assembly. Die sitzen an Total War Warhammer 2. Und eben gerade wurden wir noch von diesem lustigen Schmetterling überrascht, der uns ein bisschen ablenkt. Aber ich bin natürlich höflich und begrüße als erstes mal unseren Gast. Hello Al, thank you for coming here.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for bringing us some brand new footage of Total War Warhammer 2. And thank you to bringing us such a nice animal. So much luck this will bring, I guess.
Das ist ein Schmetterling?
Das ist ein Schmetterling.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. I think it's a very, very crazy word, hearing Schmetterling for such a little tiny and soft animal.
We have butterfly or Schmetterling.
Schmetterling.
It's a powerful word.
Yeah. And we got a powerful game as well. I'm pretty big fan of Total War Warhammer 1. I played it through with the main campaign. I also played it with the Chaos faction. I tried the Wood Elves, and I didn't even finish the new ones. I think you just released some Norse DLC or something.
Yeah, that's right. We released the Northcote race pack, which adds 2 playable Northcote factions to the game. And we released this as a pre-order bonus for people who pre-order Warhammer 2. Or you can just, buy it yourself, do the race pack on its own. But we also released a patch recently as well, and there was a lot of talk in the community about how, since we first released the first Warhammer game, obviously we had Empire Greenskins, Dwarfs, and the Vampire Counts, and the game has evolved and grown, and we've got so many new races, so many legendary lords. A lot of the community felt that the old guys were feeling a bit weak. We had a little power creep maybe, and so we recently released a patch to bring those guys back up. So they've got new skills, new abilities. We've changed the way some of them work. So we've reconfigured the Chaos campaign, so you can have more momentum. You can sweep down and really be Chaos, and sweep down and have a big kind of leave a trail of destruction in your path, which is what Chaos is all about. So we did things like we reduced some of the attrition and the kind of increase the replenishment that you get when you rest. So it's less stop-start now. It's more of a constant campaign with more momentum, sort of thing. So and that's our plan for all of this game, is to keep looking at it and keep evolving it and not leave it. When we add new content, we want it all to balance. So we're always going to keep an eye on old content as well and make sure that it works together. So. And that's true of all 3 games in this trilogy, basically. Yeah.
You have much going on in the first part, even more than I could handle.
Yeah.
And which game can say something about itself, that you can't even finish the first part, and then the second part is coming, it's even better. I really have to keep up to play those Norse guys before Warhammer Total War 2 is coming out. And when will that be?
So September 28th this year.
Yeah.
So now it's, we'll see like 5-6 weeks until then, so not long to go now.
Okay, that is manageable for me.
Yeah,
I'll try to do that.
Good.
But I'm very, very much looking forward to Total War Warhammer 2 because what I read, this game is going to be even bigger. You got more races, and you took those 2 worlds and put them together. And maybe you can explain this even better than me. What's the new stuff in Total War Warhammer 2?
Yeah, so in Total War Warhammer 2 itself, we have a new campaign set in the New World, which is way to the west of the old world from the first game.
Yeah.
And we have, same as the first game, we have 4 playable races at launch, which is the Skaven, the Lizardmen, the High Elves, and the Dark Elves. And this time around, we've changed up the campaign somewhat. What we wanted to do was build a narrative structure into the campaign. So each race you play as, or each legendary lord within a race that you play as, has their own narrative structure throughout the campaign. And we've built a new system to both provide this strong sense of storytelling, a stronger sense of storytelling than we've ever done before throughout the course of a campaign, but also B, to provide a very concrete end game. Because the traditional experience of a Total War game, it's a big sandbox game. You can start as this faction, as Rome or Carthage or the Greeks or whatever. And you have campaign objectives. You have to capture so much territory or defeat certain other factions or whatever. But halfway through the game, once you've conquered half the map and you own half the territory of the world in that particular Total War game, You know, the challenge has kind of gone out of it. You know you've won.
Yeah, it's
right?
a pretty honest thing to say. It's the same thing I'm thinking. It's getting a little bit repetitive.
Exactly. So we wanted to switch up the end game and provide a crescendo, you know, a concrete endpoint. So how it works now, in the what's called the Eye of the Vortex campaign, which is the main campaign that you get with the game, we have this new system. Everybody's in a race to control the Great Vortex. You can sort of see it in the background of the start screen there, and what this is, it's in the backstory, in the lore of Warhammer, it's a vital feature of the Warhammer world. It's a great swirling vortex that the elves created many thousands of years ago to defeat a chaos invasion.
Okay.
But now it's become weakened. Something has happened to destabilize it, and it's in trouble. And the elves want to preserve it because it keeps chaos out of the world. Also, the lizard men want to preserve it because it keeps chaos out of the world. These are your kind of, there's no good guys and bad guys in Warhammer, really, but those are notionally on the side of order, I suppose you could say. But
yeah.
And of course, the Dark Elves, and especially the Skaven, they want to exploit it for all its power, right? So all four races are racing effectively to get control, to control the vortex.
All right.
And this is the final objective. And to do this, they need to cast a certain amount. They need to cast 5 rituals, which are great spells that you cast on the campaign map, and they take 10 turns to complete every ritual. So you'll start a ritual, and everyone will attack you like crazy for 10 turns, and you have to survive. And then it calms down again, and then you keep expanding, and you play your Total War expansion game, and then you build up the currency you need to commit the next ritual, and then you kick off the next ritual, and it all blows up again. So we have this incredible rising sense of tension and pace throughout the campaign with these great big, where your entire faction is under siege for 10 turns by chaos will come into the world and attack you. Other races may choose to throw their forces at you and stop you doing your rituals because they want to get theirs done first.
Okay.
Yeah? And right at the end, when one of the races completes their 5th ritual, there's I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but there's a big cataclysmic event at the end, which requires you to get involved and be the victor.
Anything less.
And if you win, then you win the game. If another race wins, if the AI race beats you in that end game, then you lose the game.
Ooh.
And that's an unusual tension and for a Total War game, right?
Ah, right. So you can do everything right, but you still have to win the final battle.
Exactly.
All
yes.
right.
Yeah. You have to get up there and you have to beat the other race. And you can, when the other races are engaging in their rituals, you can send your forces to attack them. And we have a little system where you can you can generate allied armies to go and attack their ritual to try and stop them doing it. So yeah, it's a big change.
So
from the ground up.
Before we keep on talking, let's have something to look at, and maybe you can explain the things we are seeing. Yeah. You brought some video, some kind of gameplay. I don't know. I think we got to start it, and you can tell us what we're seeing here.
Okay, so this is not the front end you'll see in the final game. This is just for the build that we have to show today.
Okay.
And what we're doing is we are beginning a new campaign playing as the Skaven, who are probably the most characterful and dare I say well-loved race in the Warhammer world, because they're just really cool. You've got this race of rat men who are constantly backstabbing each other to be the superior, to be the winner,
love this
right?
game. They're my favorite ones.
And they're a swarm army. They're all about swarming with these tons of these clan rats and these Skaven slaves, and they also combine a sort of technological superiority, rather like the dwarves. They're incredible engineers, and they use warpstone, which is the green glowing.
Yeah, I heard they eat the warpstone.
Yeah, they do, and they use it to mutate themselves, and they implant it and create these horrible, horrible creatures in the battlefield. It's basically like the spent uranium fuel rods of the Warhammer world. It's crazy stuff, and only they are mad enough to go near it and use it, right? So yeah, they're a really cool race to play as. They're very interesting, a lot of fascinating backstory, and crucially, in the campaign game and in battle, they play like no other race. For a whole number of reasons. And one of the things we did with the first game that we feel was a great success, and it seemed to work out really well with the fans as well, was just, in Total War Warhammer, we're working with fewer factions or fewer races, but we're going much more deeply into those races and building very unique mechanics for them in campaign and in battle. So not only do they reflect what you get in Warhammer in the tabletop game and in the books and the stories, but also they provide you with a. They're not just different in flavour; they're different in execution. They do different things. You know, there's some races that do things that other races simply cannot do because it's not in there. We don't give them allow them to do that. And the Skaven are a great example of that. They have. So one feature they have, we'll see it on the campaign map in a second, is the whole backstory of the Skaven and the way they work is that they burrow underground and they create these giant nests. And then when they reach a kind of critical mass, they swarm out and to go and take over masses of land. And you have these massive Skaven invasions. And to reflect that in the campaign game, if you're playing a Skaven and you're building a settlement, just like any other race, there's settlements on the map. You can conquer a new settlement and build a new city in there, start leveling it up. When the Skaven capture a settlement, to anyone else on the map, it just looks like ruins. You cannot see that it's a city. So, and the other races won't know that there's actually a thriving, massive Skaven settlement under the ground there until they send an army to investigate the ruins. Because when you go to ruins now in Warhammer 2, you have a couple of options. You can set a new settlement up there, or you can choose to delve into it for treasure. You can go treasure hunting, and you might find some magical loot. You might get cursed and then carry around corruption for 10 turns or something like that. There's all sorts of outcomes that can happen from treasure hunting. It's like roll the dice and see what happens.
And now you also can find a little band of Skavens, or maybe a bigger one.
Exactly. There's like, there's an entire army there, and an entire garrison army, and a giant city with loads of buffs. And it's like, that can be a really nasty surprise if you're playing as one of the other races. And the AI plays by those rules as well. It doesn't necessarily know where your cities are. So it may come to try and, it might come with a small army to settle in the ruins there, and then it finds all your hidden Skaven, and you're like, and you destroy them all, and then you sink back into the ground, and nobody's the wiser. That army's just been destroyed. So it's pretty unusual, pretty unorthodox way for a faction to work. And there's a whole other there's a whole bunch of different ways in which we get their sneaky nature into the game. So your lords and your legendary lords, you know, the guys who lead your armies, they have a new stance that only the Skaven have called Stalk, and it enables you to go into ambush mode and be stealthed, so no one can see you, but you can still move around. And that's nothing. No other race has that. Most races can go into ambush stance, and then but you sit in a bit of scenery somewhere, and ideally you increase your chances of ambush by being in a forested region or something like that, because it's easier to hide. If you try and ambush someone in the desert, obviously there's a really low chance of it happening. But the Skaven are very good at staying stealthy, and they can move around and ambush. So.
Okay, that's what I like so much about the game, the big replay value of all of those races. And not only the Skaven are playing uniquely, I guess all the other factions as well. But what are we seeing here right now? This looks like the campaign map.
Yep, so this is right at the start of the campaign. Yeah. Our faction is Clan Moors, which is led by Queek Headtaker, who's a very powerful melee warrior in the Skaven for Clan Moors. And the panel we had up just now, we're doing a lot to help players come on board a bit more easily, right? Because we're also aware that our games are very deep. There's a lot of hidden complexity in our games. So while we're not actually seeing the tutorial now, we've rebuilt our tutorial system entirely to make it very easy for new players to get into it. If you're a Total War veteran, especially if you played the first Warhammer game, you kind of understand how things work. So you can probably get away with diving in without the tutorial. But for new players, we wanted to, we really want new players to be able to understand what they're doing in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, sure. So, but you did a good job in the first game already, so I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, okay. So now the player here has taken control of Queek, and he has his the first threat to the Skaven in this part of the world. This is in the Southlands, which is the southwestern continent of the New World area. It's actually kind of attached to the Old World. It kind of sticks out into the map.
All right.
And as Clan Moors, your first challenge is you've got a high elf army and a small high elf settlement right next to you. So your first job missions in the game will be able to wipe those guys out. So this is what we're seeing. We're seeing Queek heading into battle with his first initial, quite small army.
Whom are we facing? Looks like some kind of elves?
Yeah, we're facing the High Elves.
High Elves, all right.
Who've built a little outpost in our part of the world, so our first job is to kick them out, basically. So, and we'll get down and have a look at the units in a bit more detail in a second here. So the starting army, you can see those 4 unit cards in the middle. They're clan rats. That's these guys here. These are the backbone of any Skaven army. Clan rats and Skaven slaves. They've got one trait, and their trait is meat shield. They are literally
the cannon fodder.
Yeah, and then you've got these guys who are rat ogres. They're kind of low to mid tier, but powerful, monstrous infantry. They have high mass, so they're really good at knocking into an enemy unit and sending them flying and disrupting them. But it's also a pretty scary charge to face as well when these things come at you. And we'll see them a bit close up again later. They've got warpstone chunks like installed in them to make them super muscly and enraged. So of course elves are classically, they're great archers, right? And elves are good with bows. Whichever elves they are, dark elves, high elves, wood elves, they're all known for being excellent archers, excellent marksmen.
Yeah.
But there's a way around this. What we're going to do here is use an ability called the Menace Below. This summons a unit of clan rats from under the battlefield. And we can lock down those archers immediately. We can get our guys straight in there. These guys have stopped firing now because they're engaged in melee.
Yeah.
And this ability, you can see it refreshing you can see it counting back down on the side of the screen there.
On the right side, yeah.
On the right side. Every race has a whole bunch of new army abilities which appear like this, and they can be triggered in certain ways. You might unlock them by building a certain building.
Do you have to create those armies up front, or do you just get them for free in the battle?
You get them for free. Queek Headtaker in particular has an ability which gives him more uses of that ability. So he has a whole bunch of uses for the Menace Below. You also get more uses of it if you're fighting in an area with high Skaven corruption. And Skaven corruption is sort of an allegory for high Skaven population. So like the Vampire Council Chaos, they spread corruption, Skaven corruption, which has it has all sorts of effects, but that's one of the key effects. But also, these are warp fire throwers. These are sort of mid-tier ranged units that fire devastating and terrifying streams of liquid warp power, basically. So they're great for... See, we've routed these guys. They're running off already. There's 2 rounds from those shooting. I mean, these are basic tier Elven units, sure, but even then, they're really, that's a really great way to absolutely terrify a unit and get it to rout really quickly.
Yeah, no, they're coming from behind.
Yep, the Rat Ogres are in now.
Pretty much outnumbered.
And this is really the key, especially in the early game, to fighting with Skaven. What you want to do is swamp the army in numbers, in trash.
Yeah,
in
you
meat
don't
shield
even
trash.
need those units back there.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, you want to surround the units and play to the combat rules. The combat rules say if you're attacked in the front, so you've got 2 units fighting face to face. If you then attack in the side and the rear as well, you instigate morale shocks, so the morale starts dropping more quickly than yours does. When a unit's surrounded, it gets scared, and that's the simple basic rule of combat. So you exploit that, surround them with units, and then you send your big guys in. You send your Rat Ogres in, you hose them down with warp fire like this, or later game there are some absolutely horrific units in the Skaven roster which are perfect for that. They're perfect for being the principal damage dealer for a unit that is bogged down in combat. And you know what? If your guys get hit in the process, doesn't matter. There's always more rats. These guys are kind of expendable. So
those horrific units, can you say the name already, or are they secret?
So there's one called. Okay, perhaps the most horrific one is the Hell Pit Abomination, which is there's no. In loads of fantasy and loads of stories, we know what a dragon is. We know what a wyvern is. Or a hydra, or a griffin, or something like that. We understand what these things are. There is nothing like the Hell Pit Abomination in anything else. It's come from the darkest recesses of a designer's mind, and it's the most amazing thing to see on the battlefield. And it's essentially a twisted, ethics-free medical experiment that the Skaven have created. It's just this massive, hulking mass of muscle, and it's got too many limbs. It's got a bunch of sort of screaming rat heads and a giant beak and a huge wheel where its butt should be.
All right.
And it kind of drags itself along, and it looks like it's in agony. And it's got all these kind of lumps of warpstone canisters that have been attached to it, and limbs that have been grafted on. It is a nightmare. It's a walking nightmare. And when you see it up close, it's quite a spectacle, because it's got the most incredible series of animations. And this is the absolute joy of working with Warhammer as a something, you know, something we're working with as a license, because we get there are models for these things in the world. These beautiful three-dimensional sculpted models that are the backbone of why Warhammer and Games Workshop are so successful. And we get to take those and we get to bring them to life, and it is a challenge.
Yeah, I've seen your archive, so to say, back at Creative Assembly. You got a whole room full of those miniature figures.
Yep.
And I guess a couple of guys who are looking at them pretty closely and putting them into the game. You're doing a great job. Exactly.
When you see it come to life like that, it's an absolute joy. They have a whole bunch of high-end stuff. Warp lightning cannons are great, which are basically, they're sort of large catapult-sized field artillery machines, basically, but they fire crackling bolts of warp energy. So they're basically like space lasers. They're pinpoint accuracy. So you get a load of them and you gang them up against, say, a dragon or a giant or something like that, and they can zap it down to no health in no time. So if you're playing against that, if you're facing the Skaven with these things, you're going to look to lock those things down and stop them firing as soon as you possibly can, because they're going to do a lot of damage.
We're seeing another battle going on right here now.
Yep.
But there's one thing I'd like to ask you. It's about the terrain. Because you got some options in Total War Warhammer Part 1 where you could attack from higher ground, you could flank and stuff. Did you do some... has the tactical options, have they grown in terms of terrain usage?
No, largely the terrain system is the same, but we've built ways to exploit that into the races. So a good example being the Lizardmen have a unit, I think it's the Chameleon Skinks, but they have enhanced abilities when they're in water. So rather than water simply being something that slows you down and reduces your fighting ability because it's because it's a trouble to be in, these guys actually excel in that sort of environment. So really, you know, a lot of the levers and pulleys that we can pull are based within the factions themselves, and we can make factions exploit terrain better, or worse, perhaps, if we feel like, yeah, you guys shouldn't be very good at that, so actually we're gonna nerf you a bit and make you worse at that thing.
This warp stone in the back of those red ogres.
Some of them have it in their fist. Look at this guy, he's just smashing an elf on the ground.
Oh yeah. That's one thing I noticed, it's not very gory. Is this going to change somehow? Because I imagine Warhammer pretty gory and bloody and stuff.
Well, we'll still have a blood pack, of course, and if you own the blood pack for Total War Warhammer 1 already, you own it already. So you own it for 2, so you won't need to buy it again, yeah. But yeah, that'll come a little further down the line. But yeah, here again, we're just playing to the Skaven strengths. We're swamping them with numbers, drowning them in warp fire. And this guy here, this is Quick Head Taker. You see, he's like a whirlwind with his blades sometimes. He does big area effect attacks like this. He has a special ability called Trophy Heads, and you can see on his back he's got some spikes covered in skulls. And this ability called Trophy Heads, it basically does a massive combat debuff modifier to units to other characters that he's fighting. He can basically bear his previous trophies, the previous warriors he's killed at the enemy he's fighting, and they're like, and they feel the fear, and their fighting ability is reduced. So he's very good. He's a very good character killer. Okay. But you know, he's like any big lord, like any big melee lord. He's also you can throw him into a basic unit of enemies, like basic infantry of enemies, and he'll do the business. You know, he'll go in there and
Skaven win again.
And Skaven win again. Mind you, these are, you know, fair to say these are the early battles. They're not up against a particularly bad force here.
Yeah.
What you will find playing as Skaven is, you know, early game, you have these small elven armies to face, and then you bump into the Lizardmen, who's the backbone of their army is Skinks and Saurus warriors. And Saurus warriors are, you know, they're quite a tough enemy because they're very tough. They're well armored anyway because they're covered in hard scales. But as they've also got that Lizardman trait, which means when they take enough damage, they may get enraged, and then they become unbreakable, and they just run towards and fight the nearest enemy unit that they can fight. And you can't play to that quick breaking of the morale by surrounding and doing damage that you would normally do with everyone else with these guys, because they'll just sit there and they'll take the damage and they'll keep paying out because they're unbreakable when you've enraged them. So
I'm going to pause
it's a real
right here.
Interesting challenge, yeah.
Because I think this is very interesting. I'm just skipping back to this part because
jump back,
it's not only those real-time strategy parts which I like. It's also those parts where you build your settlement like this. Maybe you can tell me something about that. Are there some specific features only by the Skavens for building a settlement?
Yeah, so again, and this is something we've done to give them the real feel in the lore that the Skaven have of a hidden enemy which grows very quickly and encroaches like a virulent disease across the land. When you conquer a settlement, and actually if you jump back to just when we conquer the settlement, I can demonstrate it to you. So right here, so have we? Oh no, we've captured it already. Can I mind if I jump back a little bit?
Sure, do it.
Just after the battle. So I'm going to leave it here. And so we click OK. And now, if we pause it here, we have three options, right? We can raise it to the ground. You know, if we were fighting an enemy terrain and we just wanted to destroy the enemy, we raise it. There we go. It's no more problem for us. We can sack it to take some money.
Yeah.
But if we settle it, this, you see the little 1 symbol and the arrow either side?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. So now there's a number of things that work here. This is our food level. Skaven are ravenous, high
that's a special resource.
It's a really crucial resource. It isn't for other races, but for Skaven it's a key resource because they're ravenous. They need to keep eating. They store no body fat. You know, they're high energy, high metabolism creatures.
What happens if they don't eat?
If you fall into a food deficit, many bad things happen. You get problems with leadership. You get problems with growth. So your settlements stop growing, or their growth slows down really badly. You have problems replenishing your troops after a battle. It can be crippling to your campaign if you let your food reserves go low. So you want to keep your food reserves high, and you do that by winning battles. And you win battles, and you enslave some captives, and you put them in the cupboard for later, you know, so they become a food source. And you sack. So if we chose to sack the settlement here, for example, we'd get some food. And also there's certain settlements which have food building slots, specific for like a fields or something. You capture those, you can get a constant income of food.
Generate food over time. All right.
Now, the ways that you burn food are, I mean, you're constantly using it anyway. The more armies you have, the more food you're using every turn.
Yeah, sure.
But also you can choose to spend it in certain ways. So I mentioned earlier, we can spend it before a battle to get more uses of the Menace Below, that ability which brings the Skaven up from underground. But here, when we conquer a settlement, we can also spend some food to increase the starting level of the settlement. So every other race, you conquer it. I'm playing as the High Elves, or in the previous game as the Empire or the Dwarves. When you conquer a settlement and it becomes yours, you build a new settlement from level 1. So you have one settlement chain building.
Yeah, and then it takes time to grow.
Exactly.
And Skaven can accelerate that.
They can accelerate that. They can throw food at the problem. And you can start a building at up to level 3, which gives you a ton of... So if we play it here, we'll actually see that in action. Whoop, there we are. So what we do is we check the food reserves and we go, oh, actually, yeah, let's throw a load of food at the problem.
How high can we go up? Until max level if we get enough food, or it's a cap?
Just a 3.
All right.
Yeah.
But even 5 is max?
Yeah, 5 is max, yeah. But even then, we start with a couple of buildings in place. We'll start with 2 buildings in place, one of which is damaged. Yeah. In this case, but because we start at level 3, we have an extra 2 building slots, so we can immediately start.
That's a big boost in the beginning. Yeah.
So if you imagine a situation where you've got your home territory secured, you're producing plentiful food, and then you break into a new bit of territory. Maybe you go to war with another faction or 2, and you start conquering their territory. You go in. Boom, you've got a level 3 settlement already. You can get up the recruitment chain a lot quicker. You know, suddenly you've got new settlements that are developing a lot faster and can become new high-level recruitment centers a lot faster. They can produce resources more quickly, and So this all plays into that idea of the Skaven, you know, snatching an area and quickly building up and then leaping into the new area and just invading en masse as a swarm, with a kind of swarm mentality. So yeah, no one works like this. No other race really works like this, and I think players will really get the flavour when they start playing it.
So the Skavens are the last race, which just got announced. You got a little teaser in the first trailer we all know.
That's right.
And what about the future? Can you already talk about will the game grow?
Schmetterling.
Yeah, there's a butterfly again.
We need to get those in Warhammer, I think.
Yeah, you think? Do the Skaven have flying units?
They don't. No, they have no flying units.
No flying units.
No, so they need to rely on their ranged units to take down flying units because they can't counter it with flying units.
Oh, okay. So what about the future? Is the game gonna expand like the last one?
Yeah, we'll be adding new content over time, new races, new DLC, new free downloads as well. We always plan to continue doing that, adding new content for players for free. So yeah, we're just gonna, you know, we feel like we're at the start of part 2, and this again is going to expand, just like part 1 did. But of course, in October we'll also be releasing the. Is it October? It might be earlier than that. It's basically shortly after launch. Anyway, we're going to be releasing a free update which enables players who own 1 and 2 to play on the big map, which is the old world and the new world together.
Yeah, that's what I meant in the beginning. You put both worlds together. How do I have to imagine that? What exactly do you mean by that? So how does it work?
So how it works is we have basically a new map which is double the size of either of the other maps. So it's double the amount of territories of either one of those maps, and it's a rendition of both the new world and the old world. And on that map, you'll be able to play a Total War Warhammer campaign as any of the races that you own. So if you own the first game and the second game, then you'll have access to those 8 core races. If you've bought some DLC for the first game, like the Beastmen or the Wood Elves, or Norska, then they will appear as well, and you'll be able to play as those guys as well.
How does that work when you just said that you got some specific tailored and narrative
So what we do is, for that big combined campaign, we're still working on the name for it. We're coming up with a name for it, but for that large campaign,
it's a different campaign then.
Yeah, it's a separate thing. It's like a third. So you'll basically have sort of 3 grand campaigns. You'll have the old world and the new world with the Vortex campaign, and then the mega map. And it's classic Total War sandbox. So there's no we don't worry about the Vortex. The Vortex mechanics aren't in that big combined map. So it will be again your classic sort of sandbox Total War game. But we're ploughing a lot of the features that we've built into Warhammer 2, and there's loads of extra little exploration features. Like I said, you can go treasure hunting in ruins. You also see the little sparkly island that spawned.
Yeah, on the bottom right. Yeah.
These randomly appear around the map, and you can send an army off to sail over and explore it, and then you might get a bonus, or something funny might happen, something bad might happen, you know.
How's the sailing gonna work?
Sorry?
The sailing, how's that gonna work?
So it's the same as the first game. If you want to send an army overseas, and so here's one actually. Here's one example of one of those points of interest on the map.
All right.
And these give you those bonuses or sneaky things. So all you do is you take your lord with his army and you send him off across the sea to that point, and he goes and explores it. So he'll get to an exit point, like a bit of beach or something like that, and then all his guys jump in a boat and they sail off. So again, we're not fully modeling naval combat, just like the first game. We're keeping it. If you have naval combat, it's simply auto-resolved on the campaign map.
Last time when I had an interview with one of you creative assembly guys, they said that's the one feature which didn't make it into the game. Big naval battles.
That's right, yeah.
Obviously, it didn't make it in the second game, so why is that? So is it a big difficulty?
Yeah, so the thing is, and we sort of decided this quite early on in Warhammer 1, that we wanted our focus to be on land battles, because really that's what the tabletop game is all about. It's about the nuance of a specific Skaven army build versus a specific dwarf army build. And you know, there are spin-off games in the Warhammer universe. Sure, there's things like Man of War, and but it takes a lot of resources to create a second type of battle game, and we wanted to focus on making the land battles great and making the siege battles great, and focusing on bringing those armies together in that way. So, so yeah, we decided pretty early on we were going to keep you know, full 3D naval battles out of the mix and just focus on land battles and make them great.
And if I remember right, then in my last interview, I was told it's going to be a trilogy. Is this still
That's correct,
true?
Yeah, this is part 2.
So there will be another opportunity, maybe, for naval battles, but I don't think you're going to talk about that
yeah,
today.
no, I certainly can't promise anything. But yeah, that's all going to happen in its own good time. And we've got a long way to go with part 2 yet. So you know, it's going to be evolving for a while.
All right, thank you very much, Al,
You're welcome.
for having this nice preview of Total War Warhammer 2.
Sure.
And maybe we see next year or in 2 years when 3 is coming out.
Let's hope so, yeah.
You're pretty quick in bringing out those things, and I like it.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Das war's von Total War Warhammer 2. Al war der großartige Communication Manager bei Creative Assembly, hat uns ein bisschen was über die Skavens erzählt, und bald kommt's raus, Total War Warhammer 2. Wann war der Release nochmal? When was release scheduled?
September 28th.
September 28th. Also aufgepasst und bleibt dran, denn jetzt geht's hier weiter von der Gamescom 2017 mit Rocket Beans.